Hello, and welcome to another episode of Two Guys, One Passion. All right, so we're going to talk about downrigger weights today and the different types, the different options that are out there, and some of the ins and outs of why certain ones maybe work better than others. I've got a number here on my desk, and I see on the background there you've also got one that you're going to want to talk about. So, yeah, it's pretty. It's shiny.
It is. It is.
So anyway, let's get this ball rolling.
All right. I'll start with yours. And then
Okay.
I'll save mine for last.
All right.
I only have this one here for right now, so I'll
Yeah.
put this one here.
No worries. So first ball, most people are familiar with. This is pretty traditional Cannon downrigger ball. I think it's a 12 pound. Definitely a good starter. Definitely like this one. I use this a lot, particularly when I'm bottom bouncing on Lake Michigan for lake trout. Again, just pretty standard ball. Next one, I actually do not know who makes this one, but this is also a pretty standard ball that you can see out there, the fish shape style ball. One of the advantages of this is that it's supposed to track a little better. You get less blowback. Again, about a 12-pound ball, I believe. And then the last one I have here that I use is what is called a pancake style ball. And this one is a little heavier. This is a 15-pound ball. And under certain circumstances, I like this ball as well. So, but each of these have their own purpose, and they all work suitably, but certain things they work better for others, right?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's their dynamics. Are you an aggressive fisher? Are you a stealth fisher? It all has factors into which kind of ball you want to use because of how they're shaped and how they react in the water, and as you had mentioned, the blowback as well. Behind me here, I have is Pow Castings. He's actually here local in Canada. His name's Brad Norris. He makes fantastic cannonballs. These are actually the ones that I run on my boat. As you can see, they're a little bit tired, but they still serve their purpose. It's shaped like a fish. He added some dynamics to it, a nice fin. The balance point is drilled perfectly, so when you put this on your rigger, it's perfect. The tracking on this ball and this fish here is phenomenal. Like, it's very minimal blowback. It tracks extremely well. There's some videos, I believe, on our Facebook page of a former colleague of ours using this, and it's testing it, showing a fishhawk the difference, because he's got the fishhawk with the depth, so you can see where the cannonball is and what the depth is telling you, and they're very, very close. Like, you can't compare. These are actually very priced very well. You can actually find them here in our stores in Canada. Off the top of my head, I can tell you right now, you'll find these at Angling Outfitters, Grimsby Tackle, and I think there's a couple of more stores, but I can't think of the name off the top of my head. What's cool about Pow Castings is these are available black, silver.
I know I saw blue as well. They're bright blue color as well.
Yes, and I believe he has a green one as well.
Okay.
I've always been a stealth fisher, so I've always been a big fan of running them in black. These are actually 16 pounds. And unlike other downrigger weight makers, Brad took it to the next level where he actually made downrigger weights for people that have trolling kayaks and canoes. So they have options that if you want to run a downrigger, you can. Brad did make that option for you. It's available.
Very nice.
So you no longer have to have that big fancy boat or anything. You can actually now go out downrigging with like an 8-pound ball or a 6-pound ball.
Yep. No, very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. So one of the things I like I've not actually used the POW casting balls, but that style of ball is a much smaller profile. So
100%.
One of the things that, while these are nice in the right conditions, if you have strong cross currents, these balls tend to get pushed the direction of the current
because of that long fin.
Because of this wide profile, there's a lot of surface area of the water pushing against this, and these will actually push so much so that when you're making a turn and you're turning into the cross current, I've actually had situations where my downrigger balls have crossed and the wires have crossed, and that's just a bad situation to be in, right? So they work great. They track great when you don't have a lot of current or you're running with or away from the current. But if you're running against the current, these things tend to get pushed around a lot. So something to consider if you're dealing where there's a lot of current.
Yeah, actually, for the weight that I use by POW Castings, Brad spent a lot of time testing, designing, everything. And even in bad weather, they still track amazing.
Yeah.
I cannot complain about them. It's because it's all I use on my boat. And I charter a lot. So when you're chartering a lot, you want to make sure you have the best of the best gear. And so far, Brad's weights from POW Castings, they're phenomenal. I actually wouldn't even use another weight on my boat because nothing's been proven to work better so far than these POW Castings for me.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. So something else you should consider when you're shopping for weights is how much can your downrigger take? You know,
Yes.
don't buy more than your downrigger can handle. You're gonna wear it out quick. You know,
Especially if you have belts.
Yeah, if it's a manual, it's less of a problem, but you can still wear things out. You can wear the pulleys out. You can wear the reels out. You can wear the brakes out. If it's electric, you're going to burn out motors. You're going to break belts. You're going to do bad things to it. So don't exceed whatever the manufacturer recommended weight is on your downriggers. You know, plan ahead for that.
Most of like the manufacturers out there are 20 pounds.
Yeah. Yep.
20 pounds.
One that exceeds that is Magnum Metals, which is one that Dan Keating talks about a lot. That is one that's very popular with him. And if you're doing fishing deep, you know, that's something to consider when you're trying to plan for what you're going to be using. And if you're fishing deep water, you know, you might have to fork out some extra money to get a better downrigger to handle that deep water. Get those balls down deep.
For sure, yeah. You want it to track properly. You want to drop them down straight. You don't want to have them flopping all over the place when you're dropping down quick, which a lot of people tend to do that. But if you drop these nice and straight, they just track nice and straight all the way down.
Yep. So also, you know, one of the things that can happen with the traditional round ball is as you're bringing them up or taking them down, you're taking them down too fast, they'll spin on you. And one of the bad things that happens there, particularly with downrigger wire, is it'll start fraying the wire. You know, that twist builds up and eventually you snap some of the strands of the wire. And then you've got problems where you'll either have breakage or bringing it up, it'll catch, it'll bunch up in a place that's not a good situation where you're fighting with the wire and the downrigger trying to get it up and back out of the water.
Absolutely. And if you're running a fish hawk on that side, that's the last thing you want to be doing is playing games.
Yeah, what's a fish hawk probe cost now? It's probably about $400 or $500.
Yes,
maybe
sir.
even a little more. So yeah, you don't want to be losing one of those probes. So
absolutely not.
Something to think about.
For sure. And then I encourage, if anybody has questions about POW Castings, please reach out to myself or Doug. Leave us a comment. We'll get back to you. Shoot us a message, anything, and I can point you in the right direction if you're interested in getting a POW's casting cannonball.
Yep. Be happy to talk to you and happy to give you information. We'll also share it here at the end of the video. So in terms of, we talked about colors, and in terms of, you know, both of us prefer black. You know, there are a lot of options out there with different colors.
There's even glow in the market. He actually makes these in glow as well.
Yes, there's a glow. So what are some of the advantages of different coatings that are out there? Like, you know, we've got just the standard black paint, but there's also different rubberized and plasticized coatings out there. What do you think are the advantages of those?
It comes down to user preference. It's like there's a user preference. It's like some people like to run braid on their riggers and not the standard wire. It all comes down to user preference.
Yep.
Everybody has their favorite go-tos, right? And to me, the finish of the cannonballs never really bothered me. It's more how do they track in the water? How do they produce fish? How do they blow back? That to me is way more important than a finish on a cannonball, period.
Okay. Yep. No, that's interesting. So one thing, I actually switched last year to braid. Um, I will say my verdict is still out on whether I like braid or not. Um, it. The one big thing I've noticed with braid over wire is if you do have an issue with braid, it's much easier to repair. There's less involved. It's
You don't need that
basically
crimping kit or anything.
you don't need
just
you
tie a
don't
knot
need
and
extra
go.
tools. Cut the line, tie a knot, go, and you're done. And I like that. I also, one of the things that annoys the heck out of me, and this is just a personal thing, is I hate nothing more than having that frayed bit of wire, the end of a downrigger line, that you constantly end up getting poked with if you didn't do a good job setting your up, doing your crimping job, and that just for whatever reason that bugs the heck out of me. So from that
Absolutely.
aspect, I really like the braid. You don't have any of that. The downside is, like, one of the things you lose to some degree is you don't get the hum, right? The traditional wire, you get that hum, and it's a very good indicator of your speed. And there are people out there that believe that hum attracts fish. I don't know.
Yes.
I'm not going to say one way or the other, but it is different, and that's one of the things that I've noticed this past year using braid.
I could vouch that the humming makes a difference because I have a wire dipsy and I have a braided dipsy. And there's days that the fish go only for the wire dipsy, and there's days that when they're aggressive and when the fish are stealth, they're actually going for my braided. So everything makes a little bit of a difference. It's all how you want to pay attention to the details that are given to you.
And that's a good point, Sergio. Is like attention to detail, right? You can go out and not pay much attention, and you're going to catch fish, right? There's no question. On a good day, you'll catch fish. But the people that pay attention and learn from what is attracting the fish, right? What is triggering the fish to bite? Those are the people that are going to be more successful when the fishing becomes tough, right?
Exactly.
Is throwing the different techniques out there that you've learned over time as to, okay, well, the wire makes a little different hum, and that tracks a fish when they're in a certain biting mood. Or if we got to go really super stealthy, maybe the braid's the better one, right? So learning from those experiences and paying attention to what the fish are telling you as you're out there.
Absolutely. As I quote Dan Keating, as in his videos and his books, he talks about keep a log. And that he's telling you everything right there is make a log. Take your temperature, your water temperature. What was your wind direction? It all comes down to a factor how the fish are reacting that day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to us to pay attention to the clues that nature's giving us. He's absolutely right. And I quote Dan Keating all on all that.
Yeah, and actually this year is going to be my first year. I'm actually going to start to keep a log so that I can start better refining that. I've been learning over the years, and I've gotten better at it. But I think adding that log is going to help a lot, because then I'll really know what's triggering the fish to bite on what days and what the weather conditions are, what the water conditions are as well.
Yeah, I started keeping a logbook a couple of years ago, and then I stopped doing it again. And then I noticed that I don't remember as much information. Even though I don't go back and read it, just knowing that I wrote it in the logbook, I'll remember it.
That helps. Sure. No doubt. Totally. So what other things, like in terms of downrigger weights, one of the other things that, we could talk about is like types of clips to use with the downrigger weights. I've been, up until now, I've been a big fan of the Scotty downrigger clips. But I'm also going to try blacks, which is something you've recommended. So
yes, the Scotty clips are good. Don't get me wrong, but I like to keep my rods tight and loaded because that increases your hookup ratio. So the thing is with Scotty clips is they're only so adjustable by sliding that pin in the back.
Yep.
With the blacks release, you have a little screw that you can tighten if you want to really crank it, if you don't want to crank it as much. And not to mention, if you have a lighter biting fish, like a lake or something that doesn't really strike hard, you can see the tip bounce.
Tip bounce, yeah. Yeah, and
And
that's interesting you mentioned that, because that's one of the problems I run into is, you know, fishing on this side of the lake. Lakers are something we actively target after a certain time of the year, because otherwise you're just not going to catch a lot of fish. Um, and there are days where you sit there and you look at the rod and you go, do I have a bite? Don't I have a bite? Do I have a bite? Because you just don't have enough action on that tip, because you're not getting it tight enough. So that's something I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out, because it would be really nice to not have that doubt and end up pulling a rod that you don't need to pull.
I truly believe that once you try the black releases, I don't think you're going to use your Scotties.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be like, all right, I found my new favorite releases, because
I'm okay with that.
They're multi-species. So
yeah.
You want to go for walleye or whatever, just release the tension. Like they're very universal.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that, definitely. So, what else do we want to talk about here for Downrigger Weights? Is there anything else you can think of?
At the top of my head, no. But I do know what we're going to talk about next week's episode.
And what's that?
That's going to be electronics chat next week. And that's one of my favorite ones to talk about.
That one I'm going to defer a lot to you. I can't. I'm happy with my electronics, but I'm definitely not as experienced there. So definitely looking forward to that. Looking forward to what that's all going to show us. And yeah, very much. So
it's, I can honestly say that I learned a lot in the past couple of years, just because I went through a lot of units, and each unit has a different purpose. You got to find the unit that fits your purpose. Yeah,
that is very true. Right there, every one of these fish finders and sonars out there, they are dedicated and designed to specific usage, and if you don't have the right 100%. One, it's not going to work optimally for you. Doesn't mean it won't work, but it's definitely something that there are opportunities for finding something that'll work better for you.
100%. You could have like the best of the fish finders, but if your transducer isn't up there, you're not getting the full potential of your fish finder.
Yep.
And that I've seen a lot.
Yep, totally. So, well, this has been a fun chat. I appreciate it, Sergio, as always. Thank you. And
thank you for having me.
Everybody, let us know what you think. Come out to our page and visit and subscribe if you like what we're doing. I'll also be sharing our email addresses out there, and so if you want to contact us and ask questions, that's out there as well. So thank you very much.
We're even open that if you want to sit on talk and chat with us in the show, you're more than welcome to chat with us.
Definitely, we'd love to have guests. So if you want to have a chat with us, we are there. No problem. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, and have a great night.
Have a great night, guys.